done. It's a real honor to be able to share some memories and thoughts on my birthday here this morning. How could anyone capture the life of someone like our Aunt Bertha in just a few minutes? She's touched so many lives over a period of 90 years that it just seems like an impossible task. I tried to think of someone I might compare her to, maybe a famous person, a historical figure, but I couldn't do it. The problem was that everyone I came up with really fell quite short in comparison. She really was truly one of a kind. Like many people here today, I only knew Aunt Bertha during the second half of her long life. Much of what I learned about her early life came from her telling stories. And we all know what a good storyteller she was. For me, many of her stories were about her years living in Boston. I realized a long time ago how much she cherished the memories. A few weeks ago, my family visited with Aunt Bertha for a while at Alice's house in Auburn. During that visit, she told us a story about a conference of some sort that she attended back in the 1960s, where she played a lot of tennis. She remembered in great detail how she kept playing and she kept winning games. And I had no idea that Bertha played tennis and loved it so much. I received many wonderful emails with personal memories of Aunt Bertha over the last few days from family and from friends. One was a summary that Aunt Alice had prepared for an autobiography that Aunt Bertha had written. I want to share a little bit of that with you. Aunt Bertha had a rough start to her life. Her parents had a difficult time finding the right nook for her after she was born. And school was not easy for Aunt Bertha. She had a stammering problem, and she had poor eyesight. She eventually got eyeglasses, but even then, Aunt Bertha writes that she had to work very hard in school, and things didn't come easy for her. Of course, growing up during the Great Depression was not easy for anyone. Aunt Bertha originally wanted to become a teacher, but there wasn't a great need for teachers at that time, and so she thought she might like to become a nurse. However, there wasn't a lot of money for nursing school, and so her pastor suggested that she go to the New England School of Theology in Boston, where she could work her way through college. Her mother and grandmother were very supportive of this idea, but other families didn't see the need for a woman to go to college. Aunt Bertha worked the summers for farmers on the mudlands and for Auburn Spark Plug Company. During the school year, she was a babysitter, she cleaned houses, she waited tables in the school dining room. In 1945, Aunt Bertha graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in theology. After graduating, Aunt Bertha entered Wharton Divinity School, also in Boston, where she worked as a domestic to pay her way through, and she had the opportunity to teach a course. This wasn't an easy time for her, because there were very few women enrolled, and the new president that took over at the college didn't think it was appropriate for women to be teaching at a theological school. Aunt Bertha writes that she was tempted to quit, but friends urged her to keep going, and she graduated in 1951. Aunt Bertha later held one of her clerical jobs working in Boston for insurance companies and for church mission offices. In 1960, Aunt Bertha's mother suffered a serious back injury back home. At the time, Aunt Alice was in nursing school, and Aunt Bertha quit her job in Boston and returned home to take care of her mother so that Aunt Alice wouldn't have to leave school to come home to work. Aunt Bertha never returned to Boston to work, although she was to return many times to the New England coast in later years with several of the people gathered here today. When my grandmother had partially recovered from her back injury, Aunt Bertha looked for a job in the area and eventually became a caseworker for the Wayne County Department of Social Services. Aunt Bertha writes that she found this to be a rewarding position because it allowed her to help people in their time of need. Aunt Bertha did a lot of that. Aunt Bertha met John Canolesio while working on one of her cases. They were married in 1969, and she loved him dearly for 19 years until she lost him in 1988. Aunt Bertha and John would take a vacation in the fall of every year. where they would drive to the coast of Maine and spend a week fishing in the ocean and enjoying autumn in New England. This became a family tradition, and it was something that Aunt Bertha looked forward to every year. A large number of family members and friends participated in these trips and have stories that could fill volumes of books. Aunt Marnie and Aunt Flossie were regulars on these trips, and I suspect that they would be featured in most of our stories. I think that the trips to Maine were special to Aunt Bertha because it allowed her to return to the New England area and share the things that she loved there with her family and her friends. Some of the stories people had sent to me made me laugh. I'd never really imagined Aunt Bertha could have a temper. But Aunt Alice passed on a story that Uncle Mickey had remembered from when he was young. Their parents had gone away for the day and left Aunt Bertha in charge. Uncle Mickey and Uncle Wally were supposed to hoe the garden while they were gone. But they decided it would be a lot more fun to tease their older sister. Finally, Aunt Bertha got so mad that she went after them with the garden hoe. Another story came from a dear friend of Aunt Bertha's who recalled an episode during a recent trip to Maine. And I quote, "One time I had to use the bathroom at Dunkin' Donuts. The ladies' room being full, I went to the men's room. When I came out, there was a poor man there waiting, and I thought he would die. Bertha just roared. She had such a laugh, such a sense of humor. I think we'll all remember that smile and that laugh. Aunt Bertha led a very busy life. She loved history. She spent years of effort piecing together her own family history. She was a member of this church, the Catholic Daughters of the Americas, the New Jersey Geological Historical Society, the Galen Historical Society, and the Clyde Chamber of Commerce, where she served as treasurer for several years. But when we look back on Aunt Bertha's life, these things don't begin to describe who she was. Aunt Bertha spent most of her life devoted to helping others. You could fill volumes of books with these stories as well. For example, Aunt Alice wrote me that Aunt Bertha took a leave of absence from work to come back home and take care of Aunt Marnie when Cindy was born. Well, I suspect that there are many such stories that many of us never really knew about. The last few years have been difficult ones for Aunt Bertha and for her brothers and sisters. She lost her sister Joanne and Flossie. She watched her brothers and her sister Alice fight through serious illnesses. Naturally, she was there at her side the entire time, but she wasn't there just for the sick ones. She was there just as much for the family and friends. Two of my cousins described Aunt Bertha as a pillar of strength for her family. And I think that describes her very well. For my entire life, Aunt Bertha's always been there, whether it's praying with friends and family in the hospital waiting area, organizing a family reunion at Cuba Lake, handing out pieces of fudge to nieces and nephews at the family gathering, family Christmas gathering down the street here in Clyde, or visiting her father wherever he was staying on every Sunday afternoon. And Bertha ended up watching a lot of football games. One of the things I hadn't really known very much about was the influence that Aunt Bertha had outside the family. My cousin Christine, Uncle Mickey's daughter, wrote to me, I quote, "I worked for Wayne County as an RN, and for the first 12 years, I did home care in my territory was Clyde. And you would not believe the people I wrote into that had a story of some kind of how Aunt Bertha helped them out in a tough situation, whether it was through her job as a social worker for the county, a neighbor, a friend, many church members, and all loved Aunt Bertha and would remark about her helping them and being there for them." Where did Aunt Bertha find the strength to do all these things? I think that everyone that knows Aunt Bertha knows the answer to that question. It was her faith. An unwavering, confident faith that hers was her own pillar of strength. Let me close with the very last Aunt Bertha story, which occurred in the hospital last week. My father and Aunt Alice were there when a young doctor that was on duty came to tell Aunt Bertha that the major artery to her heart was badly damaged and wasn't going to last much longer. This doctor was having some difficulty telling Aunt Bertha this news. And she told him not to worry. She's ready to go whenever the Lord decides it's time. Later, when Aunt Alice asked if they'd like to pray together, Aunt Bertha said yes. But before us and Alice had a chance to say anything else, Aunt Bertha began reading the prayer. With only a few hours left in her life, Aunt Bertha was still being Aunt Bertha. We can all be so very proud of Aunt Bertha, of the way she lived her life, the roads she helped pave for others, the number of lives that she's touched. Early in her life, Aunt Bertha wanted to become a teacher or a nurse. Little did she know that she would end up being both. When I think of Aunt Bertha, I'll picture that smile and the roaring laugh. I wasn't at that Dunkin' Donuts in Maine, but I can picture Aunt Bertha's laughter just as though I was there. And I know all people who are as well.